As gas prices have had their biggest spike in history, thanks to the cheap gas and no new wars president's new war with Iran, you know, that same new war with Iran he swore Obama was going to start in 2011, or the inevitable invasion of the Middle East we were going to get if we elected Kamala over the no new wars nacho supreme leader. The average American, regardless of party, is getting to the point where they can no longer ignore the consequences of having a questionably sentient circus peanut as president is having on their day-to-day lives. After a year of disastrous foreign and economic policy decisions, tariffs, the gutting of government agencies, and instability in leadership, Operation Epic Distraction, which has already resulted in the loss of 15 U.S. service members and the first U.S. fighter jet to be shot down by enemy fire in decades, and that coupled with the painful prices at the pump has caused support to falter even amongst the base, as Republicans who say they strongly agree with Napoleon Bonaparte's handling of the economy has dropped from 52% in January to 43% today. And that makes sense because the average American has been struggling for a very long time to just put food on their table and keep a roof over their family's head, and now they're reminded every day once again as they drive past the pumps that it is not getting any better anytime soon, and promises have been broken. And to add insult to injury, as we fight a war that's costing us $1 billion a day and the debt just soared past $39 trillion. Orange Julius Caesar just came out and told us that if grandma can't afford healthcare and little Jimmy can't get a good education, it's not his fucking problem because we've got wars to pay for. No joke, he literally just came out and said it with his mouth into a microphone that it's just not possible that the federal government cannot afford to fund Medicare and Medicaid and childcare costs because, you know, we gotta blow up brown kids. And he follows that up by putting out a proposed budget that increases defense spending by 40%. We already have the most bloated military budget on the planet by like a lot, and we're just going to make a fiscally conservative increase of nearly $500 billion to it. And now I know it's not feeding children, so nobody's like, oh my god, how are we gonna pay for it? But in case you were curious, he says we're gonna pay for it by, you know, not feeding children or giving them health care or an education or making sure they don't freeze to death, amongst a bunch of other things. To pay for this massive increase in the Pentagon's piggy bank, he wants to cut $5 billion from medical research and $15.8 billion from health and human services. He wants to cut over 30% of the State Department's budget, which includes humanitarian and global health services. He wants to cut over half, 55% of the National Science Foundation's funding. He wants to cut $5 billion from agriculture, cutting nearly 20% of the USDA's budget, which does things like literally pays farmers so they can feed children. He wants to eliminate the Department of Education and federal student aid, totally axes funding for public broadcasting, mostly because they do things like tell people about how he wants to axe all of the stuff that's important to them, like low-income heating and cooling assistance. He doesn't want to just cut it, he wants to completely eliminate it. Right now, in today's America, with low-income heating and cooling assistance, people die every single year during heat waves and cold snaps because they cannot afford to pay heating and cooling bills. A problem that's only going to continue to get worse as the climate change they pretend doesn't exist continues to, you know, exist. And he's up here like, you know, some dying every year is good, but we can do better and just make sure that all the poor kids and old people get turned into Hot Pockets and popsicles. The point I'm getting at is that this isn't partisan anymore and hasn't been for a long time, because your political ideology or lack thereof doesn't change the fact that the dollars in your bank account buy less every year. That it's your friends, your neighbors, your own children that are going to be sent halfway around the world to die, not for freedom, but for Exxon and Raytheon. That it's the roads and bridges that you and your loved ones drive over every single day that are crumbling, and the schools that your kids go to can't even afford the basic supplies your kids need to learn. It's your grandparents that can't afford the medication they need to live, and your family farms that can't afford the fuel and fertilizer to put the food in the ground that you need to eat. And again, regardless of our party affiliations, we have to all collectively suffer through this together so a few billionaires' bank accounts can compete for a high score. And I don't think that has ever been more painfully obvious than it is today after the President of the United States of America came out on national television and said with his full fucking chest that American citizens are not entitled to, that they do not deserve the benefits of the programs they have paid into their whole goddamn lives. That it's not his responsibility, it's not his problem to use our tax money to take care of the programs that take care of us. And not only that, but that they are entitled to take our hard-earned money, our tax dollars, and fund endless wars and give handouts to their billionaire buddies. And if you and your loved ones suffer as a result, well, that's not their problem.